1 and 2. One of you is going to die. One of you is going to live. And the thing is, it's your choice.
Okay, rapid fire all the tools I use as a writer. Free version, paid version. For drafting and formatting my book, Readsy, Scrivener. For creating a visual plotline timeline, Miro, Plotter. For creating maps, I just use Incarnate. They have a free version or a paid version. For self-editing, Grammarly, Pro Writing Aid, or AutoCrit. I personally love AutoCrit, but special mention. If you want to be able to get everything that are in the thesaurus books for writers, like the Emotional Wound Thesaurus, etc., onestopforwriters.com. This is my new favorite tool. They have a 2-week free trial, otherwise it's paid. But honestly, I am seriously considering paying for it because it is awesome. If you want any information about any of the tools that I mentioned, let me know and I would love to make a video about it. So, see you guys!
I'm about to give you some writing advice that I never received, that I've never given before, and that I realized is actually really important. Especially these days when it seems like everyone is putting out a book and it's really easy to feel like, oh my god, if I'm a writer, do I need to put out a book? My name's Meg, I have a master's degree in creative writing, I've written a bunch of books. This is the book that's out now, it's called Destroyer, it's a fantasy romance. I love giving writing advice and talking about books, so give me a follow if you're into that. Here's the advice, and it may not apply to you, but I think it probably will apply to a lot of you. You don't have to finish that. You don't have to finish the project. You don't have to finish the book. You don't have to finish the outline. You don't have to. You can just set it aside forever. Because not every project you start is a winner. Not every project you start is going to keep you interested, and that's okay. I'm going to tell you a thing about myself. I've been writing since I was 10 years old. I didn't finish a single book until I was 26. And I only finished it because it was my grad school dissertation and I had to. And I didn't write another book until I was 32. Like, finishing a novel is not easy. And when I tell you, you should be writing, if you want to be a writer, you should be writing all the time. That doesn't mean writing a full book. That means just letting creativity flow, writing what feels fun. When it stops feeling fun, set it aside, write something else. One day, an idea will click with you and you'll be able to finish it. But until then, I encourage you to not finish it, because pushing yourself to finish this book that you feel like you have to get done so you can put a book into the world, that's just gonna ruin the whole thing for you, and you need to stop. DNF the writing project. Here's some writing advice I wish I had taken to heart earlier on in my writing career. My name's Meg, I have a master's degree in creative writing. I have written 5 books, and I like to share my writing tips and tricks. Follow me if you're so inclined. I want to preface this by saying that the first book that I ever wrote, the first thing I came up with was the plot. It was a very intricate, like, political intrigue, murder plot, and there was a magic system, and I came up with all that stuff, and then I sort of inserted the characters after the fact. And I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I'd come up with the characters first. Here's why. You think, oh, okay, so if I'm gonna write a book, it needs to have a good plot. The plot is what keeps people interested. No, wrong. The characters are what keep people interested. The characters are the emotional core. If people don't care about your characters, they don't care about the story. So, yes, you should have a plot in place. You should have all of those things figured out. But you also need to know who the characters are. And it's more important, I think, to focus on what your character wants, what's driving them forward, more so than forcing them into a plot that you've already created. If you can only choose one thing to drive your story forward, plot or character motivation, always pick character. It's just gonna make the story better, I promise.
I will stand with you between the heavens and the earth. I will tell you where you are. Do you love me?
I love you! From the moment I saw you trying to go over the wall, I have loved you desperately. I cannot breathe when you are not near. I love you, Charlotte. My heart calls your name.
You bring me back, I lay it down and grab your hips, and we lose all.
Do you want to have a finished book in 1 month? This technique should work for you regardless of whether or not you already have an idea, whether or not you've started, whether or not you are literally just looking at a blank page right now and you would like that blank page to turn into a book. Follow along, I think this technique will work. I'm talking 30 days from blank page to first draft of a novel, all right? So it's not gonna be like perfectly finished, but you're gonna have a good solid draft. Let's do this, okay? First thing you're gonna need is an idea. This is how I choose ideas when I'm, coming up blank. Writing is my full-time job, so sometimes I can't just like wait around for something to super inspire me. Sometimes I've got to pitch some things and see what sticks. So I will look at some of my favorite classic novels or classic stories, and I will look at whatever is doing really well right now. So if you're wanting to be an author, you want to sell something, think about your favorite classic novels. I usually go novel, but you can think classic old movie, classic television show, classic anything, but something that somebody should have heard of. Okay, it can't be super niche, and it can't be too too in the weeds. Then you're going to want to look at what is hot, what people are watching right now. For that, I like to look at TV because I think that that's where you find a lot of the most popular content. So if you're not thinking about how to make a book that sounds like Wednesday, a book that sounds like The Last of Us, a book that sounds like Yellow Jackets, you're like living under a rock. Those are some of the most popular series that are happening right now. Those are going to be like catnip for New York book editors who are also watching those shows and loving them. Other things that I think would be interesting to see are White Lotus, Abbott Elementary, Dahmer, Watcher. Just start thinking in terms of like, what are the television shows people are talking about? What can people not shut up about? Then you're going to take that and you're going to mix it with your classic story. So you're going to say, okay, I'm going to write a Christmas story meets Dahmer. I don't know what that would be. That's your job to figure that out. Okay, so you've got your quick pitch. Now you're going to develop into a longer log line, all right? I don't have enough time to really go into the weeds on what a log line is, but it's essentially like 2 to 3 lines that gives like the overview of the main conflict of your story. Now that you have a log line, you're going to start getting into 3-act structure. That's what we're going to do. All right, so grab a notebook and you're going to split it into 4 sections. We're talking 3-act structure, but the weird thing about 3-act structure is it kind of is 4-act structure. It's Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and Act 3. So it's 3 acts, but the Act 2 is twice as long as both Act 1 and Act 3. So you're going to split it into 4 sections on your pad of paper or your computer, like however you want to take notes. And each one of those sections is going to have 10 scenes. That's a total of 40 scenes. Your book may have more or less when you finish, but we're going to start with 40 scenes because that's kind of like a workable amount of scenes. Every single scene at the end of every act, so at the end of Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and 3, the last scene in that act is going to be a really big scene. This is going to be the kind of scene that like changes the course of the story. So if you used my method for coming up with an idea for a book, I want you to think about your source material. So think about, the classic novel and the more modern story, and think about what happens at the end of Act 1. So in a novel, that'll be about 25% of the way through. In a TV show that's like 10 episodes, we're talking, it's usually at the end of the first episode because that's kind of big hook. In a movie, it's about like a half an hour in, maybe less. There's usually a really big event that just changes the course of everybody's lives, all right? This is your first plot point. Now, the second one we're going to look at is at the end of Act 2A. This is your midpoint. So any story, no matter whether you're talking about television, books, movies, whatever, they're going to have a really big event happen in the middle of the book. If you're writing kind of a thriller, this is usually like a big reveal. Think Gone Girl, the really big reveal in Gone Girl. If you're writing a romance, this might be when the 2 people get together. But it's a big pivotal moment in the book. Your midpoint is going to be... So the way I've always learned and what I like to do is I like to do 2 plot points right up next to each other. So I will do the biggest possible high. So your character thinks they won, and then the lowest possible low in the story. Your character thinks they won, And then this awful thing happens. Your characters get together and then they find out one of them has been lying, right? There's this crazy reveal that completely changes the course of your story. At the end of Act 2B, you have the second act curtain. This is when you're going to want to do another high and low, all right? So 2 more plot points. Really, really big high. Your characters think they won. Really, really, really low, low, okay? And then at the end of Act 3, it's, of course, the ending, your finale, okay? So the first thing you're going to do, you've divided your paper into 4 sections, and you've circled the last scene in each of those sections. What you're going to do is you're going to brainstorm, what are these huge moments, okay? What's the first moment that completely changes these characters' lives? What's the midpoint moment, the midpoint high and low, the biggest win and the lowest low that they could get at this point in the story? What's your end of Act 2 high and low? It needs to be bigger than the midpoint, so higher than the midpoint and lower than the midpoint. What's your finale? Figure out these beats before you even start writing. Believe me, it sounds hard. It should be hard. It is going to make your writing so much easier. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to keep trying to do this quick. So there are a ton of other little beats that you want to hit within those 40 scenes that I've given you. I have an outline worksheet in the link in my bio that you can download, and it will just kind of explain all of them. There are very specific beats to hit that will make it easier to kind of get through that really soggy midsection point of your book. So download that if you haven't already, but basically, Act 1 is about the setup. It's about introducing the character, introducing the wants, introducing the problem. Act 2A is about getting to the meat of the story. So this is called Fun and Games. It's, if you're writing a mystery, this is where all of the little clues come up. If you're writing a love story, this is where the characters fall in love. You get your midpoint. Act 2B is when the bad guys start closing in. So this is when all of the stuff kind of starts to get really, really fast and really, really heavy and really hard to deal with for your character. This is when you start, as the writer, metaphorically throwing rocks at them. And then we slide into Act 3, where you do your big finale. All right, so you have to plot all of those beats. Give yourself a week to do all of this work, getting the pitch, plotting the beats, coming up with the whole worksheet. That gives you 3 weeks left to write. Okay, so you've got your beats. You spent a week really, really working on your beats. So now you have a big, weird, unwieldy outline. You have a, legal pad that has 4 lines drawn on it and a couple of scenes. What are you supposed to do with that? So I like to go into my computer at this point. I make a list of 40, just up to 40. Those are my scenes. I look at my outline and I start plotting those beats into specific scenes, okay? You want 1 scene per beat, but there are going to be sections like the fun and games section where you have 1 beat and then 4 scenes, and you have to figure out how to split them up and kind of continue showing the story move forward while you're also attacking this beat. Okay, so now you have an outline of 40 scenes, all of them very carefully described. You're going to go in and really in-depth describe exactly what is happening in this scene, okay? Exactly detailed, what people say, what people are doing, okay? Get really, really detailed. I will sometimes write 20-page outlines at this point. Whew, okay, you got your 20-page outline. So now you wanna go in and you wanna put it in manuscript format. That means you're gonna double space it, Times New Roman, 12-point font. You've got 3 weeks left. So for the next 3 weeks, you're gonna do about 2,000 words a day, and you're just gonna go through and you are going to do some timed writing sprints where you actively write exactly what's happening in each beat for however long it takes to get to 2,000 words. I like to set a timer and write to music just to kind of get my brain into the headspace of write, but you've got to make it a very short period of time so that you actually get it done. So set a timer for a half an hour, and while that timer is going, you do nothing but write. And then you do that again and again and again until you're hitting your 2,000 a day word goal. By the end of 3 weeks, you should have a little less than 60,000 words, hopefully a little more. Sometimes I will go over that. And you basically just need to make sure you got through the whole story. Now you have a full, really, really bad rough draft, but a full, well-outlined story that you can start editing. And that's a great place to be in after a month of work. Hope this helped.